pandemic has further limited our voices and has increased the digital divide.
The term digital divide is sometimes used to describe the difference between people who do have access to technology and people who either have very limited access or none at all.
Not having access to data inclusion, learning, COVID-19 pandemic reports, and self-development is a violation of human rights.
Inclusão digital é para todos, sem exceção, pensando no futuro para uma boa educação, de acesso à tecnologia para o nosso empoderamento. Esta ferramenta está todo o tempo oferecendo novos conhecimentos, mas infelizmente o acesso ainda é limitado para nós.
É triste? É indignante também é, mas é irreversível? Não é. As autoridades instituídas precisam tomar mais rigorosas providências sobre esse assunto.
I realize the power of technology.
I need access to technology to be a voice.
I believe we can achieve digital inclusion all around the world, and I will fight to make that happen.
Wise up, listens. Digital inclusion. Digital inclusion. Women need a reliable source of technology. Yes, technology.
Hello and welcome to everybody who is here with us today. Welcome to the Girls Speak Out. At the outset, I want to wish every girl here a very happy International Day of the Girl. On this day, every year, we come together from all around the world to be a part of something bigger than ourselves as we celebrate the International Day of the Girl. This year, we're just as excited to celebrate the day and raise our voices as we begin this journey of creating and paving way for generational change and equality. And we hope that as young girls and change makers, we can all work together, starting today, to create the world we wish for, an equal, safe, and just world. I am Fatima, a girl advocate and girls' rights activist from Good Shepherd, Chennai, India.
I am Pratiksha from St. Agnes's Loreto Day School, a girl advocate working with the IBVM UN NGO, and I'm joining you all today from Lucknow, India.
I am Kimi, a girl advocate working with the GRADE and with the Generation Equality Adolescent Steering Committee. I am from Mozambique. Together, we are the moderators of Girls Speak Out of IDG 2021. We are so excited and happy to be part of this wonderful journey.
Today, we are being hosted by the Working Group on Girls, WGG. The WGG is a coalition of over 40 national and international non-governmental organizations with representation at the United Nations that work with girls to support and advocate for their rights, as well as our co-sponsors of today's event, the Permanent Mission of Canada to the United Nations, the Permanent Mission of Peru to the United Nations, the Permanent Mission of Turkey to the United Nations, UNICEF, UNFPA, and UN Women. On December 19, 2011, the United Nations General Assembly declared October 11 as the International Day of the Girl Child to recognize girls' rights and focus attention on the need to address the challenges girls face, promote girls' empowerment, and the fulfillment of their human rights. This year's celebration of IDG demands a continued innovative approach to building connections to digital spaces while emphasizing inclusion of voices often left out of these digital spaces. With a goal to eradicate the digital gap in mind, and in conjunction with UNICEF's IDG 2021 theme, Digital Generation, Our Generation, the WGG's theme for the Girls Speak Out is Closing the Digital Divide to Accelerate Change. Now, why is this digital divide significant enough to be addressed? Let's take today as an instance. We're able to virtually connect from all around the globe to engage with policymakers and world leaders about the grappling issues that are prevalent in our communities. While the pandemic has accelerated these digital platforms for learning, earning, and connecting, There is the other side of the coin where some 2.2 billion people below the age of 25 still do not have internet access at home. Girls are more likely to be cut off. In the world's least developed countries, the percentage of digital gender gap hovers around 43%. Only by addressing the inequity and exclusion that span geographies and generations can we usher in a digital revolution for all with all. Therefore, today, we seek to put girls at the forefront to share their experiences and hear what they need in finding sustainable solutions to issues that they face. As advocates that are part of the ever growing digital generation, it is crucial that we understand the significance of digital literacy, reliable electricity, digital devices, the internet, and how it can impact the way girls interact, educate themselves, and participate in political discourse. Thus, providing this space to hear from girls who are the current digital natives is critical to understand how to address the issue. I deem it a great honor to now introduce our co-sponsor of the event who has joined us today, Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative of Canada to the United Nations, Mr. Richard Arbeiter. Over to you, sir, to share your message with us.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, Fatima, and thanks to you and to all of our girl moderators and participants from around the world for joining us on the International Day of the Girl. As you pointed out, Canada, alongside Peru and Turkey, have been long-standing advocates of your efforts, having worked to establish this day almost 10 years ago. This is really about you, so I won't say much except for to agree wholeheartedly that it is inequity, it is exclusion. What you described affecting so many girls in so many places around the world is a severe and acute problem that's been exacerbated by the accelerated shift to the online space. As you also pointed out, the best solutions to problems are those that are found and generated by those that are affected, who understand what are the needs of people anywhere confronting that issue. So we're so thrilled that you are occupying this space and working together to help to identify what are solutions to the iniquity and to the exclusion that you described. We will continue to be your partners on this journey. We look forward to learning from you and to learning from all of your counterparts on this call and into the future. Having your voices, having their voices at the table is essential, and you can continue to count on our support. Thank you, and I wish you nothing but the best of an exchange today and into the future.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Arbeiter. Your words touched me a lot, as well as everyone else here. Welcome everyone to this webinar space. I invite you to join us in our journey. This is a safe space, and please feel free to interact with us in the chat box. Today, we are using an online space to interact with each other, but we have in our minds that around the world, there are a lot of girls that can't interact with us now because of lack of information and access to this space, which should be open and accessible to everyone. For that, we stand in solidarity with all girls and others that can't access this space, saying that we are counting and pushing action on your behalf, as well so that we can achieve equality and equity for all. We can't leave anyone behind. We all have the right to access the digital era. We would also like to acknowledge the girls and indigenous people from all lands that are joining us today and acknowledge those who are not in the room as a result of limited access to technology. Even though we are meeting today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land, which each one of us calls home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility to improve relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of the local indigenous people and cultures. Thank you for everything that you did and are still doing to speak out and have your rights and culture respected. Over to you, Pratiksha.
Thank you, Kimi. This year's theme for the International Day of the Girl is Digital Generation, Our Generation. Truly, this is the age of the internet, and in this era-defining revolution, girls must not be left behind. In today's event, you will hear from our esteemed guest speakers for today and girl activists from around the globe campaigning for equity and equal digital access. Joining us today from Cameroon is Melissa, who is a girl advocacy representative at Global Glow. We have Isadora, who is a part of the Girls Advisory Group of the UN Women. Vanisha, a Girl Scout joining us today from the US. Susan, a girl activist and leader who is currently working with Save the Children in Bolivia. And Louise, a tech trailblazer working with UNICEF. We have with us today as our guest speakers for today's event, Mr. Daniel Seymour, the Director of Strategic Partnerships Division at UN Women, Councillor Rivera of the Permanent Mission of Peru to the UN, representative from the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Turkey to the United Nations, Dr. Julita Onabanjo, Director of the Technical Division at the United Nations Population Fund, Ms. Pamela Malinga, the Global Head of Impact at Girl Effect, and Ms. Stacey June Shelton, Global Head of Education and Advocacy at the Dove Self-Esteem Project with UNICEF. I extend my warm welcome to all our dignitaries and our powerful girl activists. I hope that we take away something new from today's discussion. Now let us proceed with the girls panel discussion on digital divide and activism with Fatima.
Thank you, Pratiksha. It's now time for the girls panel. Before we commence, I'd like to encourage all the participants to use the chat box and be a part of the conversations we have today. Please feel free to share your thoughts and questions with us. We now have Susan, Melissa, Isidora, Bonesha, and Louise, the participants of today's roundtable, and young dauntless girls as our panelists with us today. Our panelists all share a striking passion for change in their hearts and have come here today with a common goal in mind, which is to eradicate the digital divide in their communities. The digital gender divide is not a national problem pertaining to any single country, but is indeed a dominant global problem that impacts almost every community. Hence, we have a digital activist to represent and converse about the digital gap in their respective communities. With that, I'd like to propose my first question to Susan, a motivated girl leader who has been actively working in different activities for the benefit of girls, boys, and adolescents in their native municipality. Susan, do you think the IDG 2021 theme of closing the digital divide to accelerate change is apt and befitting to the present global scenario?
Hola, mi nombre es Susan. Tengo 16 años. Soy
Hello, my name is Susan. I'm president of the Committee of Girls, Boys, and Adolescents in Bolivia. And I'm currently working to advocate for the rights of girls and adolescents. And regarding your question, I believe that we still do not have the means to counter-resist the problems of the digital divide. Right now, we are contemplating this problem that affects us all. But we are mainly trying to defend the girls. I believe that we are breaking records and we are going beyond our obstacles. But we need the support of the authorities, the NGOs, so that we can continue working to get more information, more training workshops to learn how to use the technologies and to reach all sectors, including indigenous areas and more remote areas. We have a long way to go, but each and every one of us are committed to this cause. And the more people can support our work, the better it will be in order to close this gap so that we can have a society that is equal for all. We have a long way to go, but we know that we can do it. And we know we will get there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your response, Susan. It is imperative for girls to feel safe while accessing the digital spaces. I stand with you as you implore for inclusion so that no girl is isolated or is left out. It's relieving to know that you are working towards the same through your campaign. More power to you. My next question is to Melissa, a young girl from Cameroon who is passionate about standing up and fighting for girls' violated rights. Melissa, why do you think that addressing the digital divide is important in your communities?
Hello everyone, my name is Fonka Melissa and I'm a young girls' rights activist from Cameroon. So thank you, Fatima, for this question. And as I'll answer, girls lack sufficient technology and digital skills. They also face difficulties accessing the internet due to lack of knowledge, financing, and devices. So I think addressing this topic is very important because it will help them. Like for example, as we know, everything is found on the internet. So girls can do this, can go to the internet and it will help them with their studies to improve their grades and also to meet new people, create new relationships and social cycles amongst people who share the same interests. So going on the internet can help us also to get to know our heroes. Our heroes are girls, are women to whom we look up to. They are like our heroes, but mostly in the female version. So meeting them too, we can ask them some questions like who should help us to get closer to our dreams and goals in the future. So I think addressing this topic is very, very important also in closing the digital divide gap. Thank you.
I absolutely agree with the point that education is the most important while conversing about digital access. Because, especially during the pandemic, the demand and need for digital access has definitely seen a hike and proved to be extremely crucial for girls to access not only other facilities but also their education. Thank you, Melissa, for highlighting its importance. Our next panelist, Isidora, is currently an activist for inclusion and founder of the organization Encuentra Tu Lugar, which helps people with disabilities find inclusive and accessible places. Isidora, what aspect of this year's theme intrigued you to join as a participant in today's event?
Hello everyone, I am Isidora. I'm from Chile and I want to answer these questions with data. According to the second Chilean study for people with disabilities in 2015, we are the 20% of the country's population. This study also reveals that is a higher percentage of women with disabilities compared to men. The rate of adult women with disabilities is 24.9%. Meanwhile, the numbers for men reveal that they are the 14.8% of the people with disabilities population in Chile. Of course, the fact that the number of women is higher than men does not mean that there is no discrimination based on intersectionality, because women and girls living with a disability or from other minorities or that are intersectional are at risk of suffering multiple discrimination. That's intersectionality means. I am here today because I wanted that the authorities and the different states could understand that if they wish that everybody had equal access to the digital area, we have to build from the difference even more if we want to talk about equal access for people with disabilities, especially the group of women and girls, because we even have the risk of suffer things as poverty and violence more. Even in my country, women and girls with disabilities have far more possibilities to suffer some form of violence than women without disabilities. After all, if we work homogeneously, thinking that we do not have differences, we will contribute to discrimination. Due to if we don't analyze all the factors, we will never achieve real inclusion in our society and the correct relation with technological tools to improve all the girls, women, and men with disabilities lives.
I think without a doubt, you have definitely proven to be a powerful voice for all the girls and minorities with disabilities out there. Thank you for being a voice of hope for them and proving that they are not going to be overlooked anymore. Thank you once again, Isidora. My question now is to Bonesha, a Girl Scout, an artist, and a robot competitor from the USA who has brought new STEM enrichment opportunities to underrepresented students globally, thereby furthering her mission to help bridge the equity gap in technology. Bonesha, what urged you to advocate for digital activism?
Thank you, Fatima. I'm very glad to join you all today. I'm Venetia, a Girl Scouts Gold Award Girls' Right activist from USA. And my story starts from my roots. I'm a first-generation immigrant from India and the first girl in my family pursuing technology. Most of my cousins and relatives are cotton weavers and agricultural labor workers living in villages under very different circumstances. In my village and in surrounding villages, students are stuck in a cycle of poverty and illiteracy, and schools are not funded or equipped with the STEM tools needed to help their students succeed. Opportunities are especially limited for girls. A lot of girls end up not going to school to help around the house and do labor jobs to keep their family financially afloat. Many can't even afford to have basic necessities like clothing, shoes, and water. When these girls grow up, they don't have the education or resources needed to advance, get a job, and dream bigger. As they grow up without technology, they get more disconnected to the many advancements and opportunities occurring in our world. They get left behind, and the cycle of digital literacy continues. Since I've recognized the privilege I have had in being able to have technology, go to school, and even pursue my passions by going into college, a question has echoed in my head. What can I do for girls like my little sister and my younger cousins to make technology for girls a norm? I decided to find answers to Girl Scouts. As a Girl Scout, you have an opportunity to develop and implement community take-action projects with lasting impact. When I was brainstorming for my project, the first thing that came to my mind was my family. So I took my Girl Scout Gold Award as an opportunity for me to serve my community by spreading mobile lab STEM kits and modern technologies to girls locally and globally around the world. What I've come to recognize is if girls are not a part of a rapidly developing digital societies, it will impact their lives in every way, particularly in advocating for their rights and being able to speak out on the issues they care about. The world and all of our communities need this fight for change. Thank you.
I think remembering and making sure to connect back to your roots and being able to be there for not only girls in your community, but initiating multiple projects and serving so many underserved girls. Bonesha, the work you have done and will be doing is incredibly commendable. Thank you for your response, and I hope that in the future we get to see you start and succeed in many more outstanding projects that you take up. My final question is to Louise, a tech trailblazer who spends her time working on an app called Conecta Ilas, which means Connect Women, that is dedicated to creating a safe and satisfying environment for female freelancers who want to flourish in male-dominated professions. Louise, what would be your words of hope for the girls who are unable to have digital access?
Thank you, Fatma. I'm truly honored to be able to be in this space today. And I would like to say for girls who are unable to have digital access that we're here for that. I can't even imagine how hard it must be not having access to technology. And this is because not having access to it doesn't only mean not having access to a phone. It also means not having access to information, education, jobs, or opportunities. So girls especially suffer a lot of hardships because of this issue. But I would like to reinforce what I've said in the beginning, that we're here for them. And several initiatives in my community, for instance, are working towards democratizing the access to tech, such as a company that fixes all computers and donates them to lower class students. So a lot of people are working hard to contribute to bridging the gender digital divide. I would also like to add that for a really long time, I thought that I had no power to change anything because I was a girl and because I wasn't old enough. But I have to admit that I was wrong. We as girls have an extreme amount of power to push for transformation in our community. So I would like to encourage every girl who is unable to access tech to embrace all their potential and inner power and push for change in their community, because by doing that, they will be unstoppable. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those powerful words, Louise. I think the first step to claiming our rights really lies in our own potential and power that we hold. As you said, it's sometimes hard to imagine the impact that one of us could have in this world. But it's when we all join hands that we create an impact that lasts. I'm incredibly grateful for your message of hope and wish we could all view the world the way you do. It has been absolutely energizing to listen to all the girls as they emphasize the need for working towards bridging the digital gap, firstly in their communities and thereby creating a global impact. I thank all the panelists for their active participation and now hand it over to Kimi as she moderates a roundtable discussion on digital divide and access issues.
Thank you so much, Fatima. What powerful conversation you had with girls. You are so powerful. Thank you for sharing with us your stories. Before we start the roundtable discussion, let me share with you that we have a graphic designer that will draw and help us build wonderful graphics during our journey. She is Ipsita Devedi. During this conversation, she will share the process of the graphic record that she's creating. Please also pay attention to the questions from the first roundtable and comment or answer from your own perspectives in the chat box. There is a first part of Ispita graphic designer. We can all see all parts of our conversation being added. Thank you, Ipsita, for sharing your screen. Moving on to our first roundtable on the digital divide and digital access. The digital divide refers to the gap between those who benefit from the digital age and those who don't. People without access to the internet information and communication technologies are disadvantaged, as they are unable or are less able to access digital information, participate democratically, or learn and benefit from skills development opportunities. The digital divide has very serious inequality impacts in infrastructure and economic power, skills and digital literacy, location and access, gender and sexual orientation. According to UNICEF ITU, more than 89% of the world's population that doesn't have quality and inclusive access to ICTs and robotic programs, necessary programs to gain knowledge. As we know, the majority of the world's population are women and girls. Even though we are the majority, we don't have access to equal opportunities. This is another issue that impacts our ability to access equal digital spaces. I would like to introduce our panelists to this roundtable. Isidora, a girl activist working with Girls Advisor Group at UN Women from Chile. Mr. Daniel Seymour, Director of Strategic Partnership Division at UN. Melissa, a girl activist working with Global Glow, Cameroon. Vonisha, girl activist working with Girl Scouts of the USA. Councillor Rivera, representative of Peru, Republic of Peru to the UN, and Madame Pamela Malinga, the global head of Impact Girl Effect. I would like to hear from all panelists' perspectives. What solutions are needed and what solutions are happening around the world for girls' digital inclusion and participation? Let's begin with Isidora.
Well, starting with the solutions that we need, I believe that the principal key is education without restructure at the system. Because nowadays we continue having sexism in education with a lot of stereotype that code girls and women being without access to STEM careers, only with the possibilities that the patriarchy has created for us. At least in my country, it's like that because the reality on the numbers reflect that only 1 of 4 students in STEM careers are women. And if we want to talk about the reality of people with disabilities, because I'm here representing them today, only 1% of these people achieve the graduation in university. So it is too much difficult to know the existence of women with disabilities in a STEM career, or even if they could go to the university. And this is because the government and state here in Chile is not with the, I don't know, the preoccupation of being concerning, the concern about what's happening with women with disabilities here in my country. Now, talking about the solutions, that it could be more positive in this way, I could know different foundations that give girls access to STEM learning. But here, the educational system does not provide a real chance to all the students to have a real education. Based on that, in my case, I have the privilege to be in a school that gives the students equal access to STEM assignments. I also, for the inspiration of a teacher, she's a woman, I want to highlight that too. I create an application to help people with disabilities find a parking lot quickly and fast. After this idea changed to an organization that help people with disabilities to see different places to find it. Really. Also involving people without disabilities in the world of inclusion and disability issues, because we know that the people with disabilities is the bigger minority in the world, but we are all very invisible, and that reality have to change now.
Thank you so much, Isidora. You brought a really interesting point to our round table. Let me share that we all have rights. Disability girls and other disabilities have rights to access digital platforms and digital spaces. Thank you for sharing with us your power and your story. Now, let's hear a little bit from Director Excellency Daniel Semur. Can you share with us your thoughts regarding the question, please?
Yeah, I'm very happy to. And thank you, Kimmy, and thank you also to all of the girl advocates that we've been listening to for sharing the stories. As it said in the graphic, I think we have to acknowledge that there are many advocates and people with amazing ideas to share who aren't able to connect for a range of reasons that we're talking about today. But the people who are here are extraordinary ambassadors, so thank you. Also happy International Day of the Girl, and I know my executive director had planned to be here and unfortunately wasn't able to, but I'm very happy that I can. I think Fatima, Melissa, Isidora, and others as well have talked about education. And I think that's, as UN Women, we do believe that's very key. And of course, COVID-19, and as has been said, has shown just how much access to remote learning and those sorts of resources is really essential for everyone, particularly for women and girls. And failure to do that just grows even further existing learning inequalities and other related inequalities. I was also very happy that colleagues have talked about this intersectionality idea, and it's already there on the graphic. Those realities are, of course, compounded for girls in a range of circumstances, not just with poor access to internet or electricity, but if they live in a crisis situation or a situation of displacement that compromises their access to education technology. And Isadora, I'm really very, very appreciative, and I want to thank you for being a voice on the issue of girls with disabilities. I think we can add to that as well, girls from minority groups. And so we have to think of it from that very much that intersectional lens. So In terms of the solutions, again, as others have already recognized, we have to get to a place where that access to technology is not just seen as something that it's nice to have, but as a critical enabler of equality and as one of the speakers in the video at the beginning said, the human rights of girls. And so governments have to have policies to make that happen. I don't know if people have seen, but today there was a report and it referenced figures that show that almost half of all countries have no meaningful policy or program that's designed to expand women's access to the internet. And of course, that includes girls. So, we need to work with governments to push them to put these sorts of policies in place, because there's only so much that we can do as advocates, right? And I want to just highlight very briefly four things that we see as key to that. First of all, improved affordability of digital devices, smartphones, laptops, and that's the data costs as well as scholarship opportunities for STEM. That's something that colleagues have already spoken about. We need safer environments for girls to use digital technologies. That includes addressing stereotypes, bullying, abuse, harassment, and so on in digital spaces. The third, we need improved accessibility to new technologies and online content that is gender transformative, so that the teaching and distance learning has to take into account the specific needs of girls so that it's accessible and it meets their requirements. And lastly, we have to enhance internet infrastructure, because there's 2.2 billion people below 25 who don't have internet access at home, and that just has to change. That's not acceptable in 2021. So again, I think these points have been made by others and will be, but this is super important, and I'm very, very appreciative that we're having this discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Seymour. You bring it a really and highlighted a really big point: education, and also the importance of digital spaces for empower girls and others. We should be accountable on that. And moving on to our next panelist, let's hear from Melissa what she has to say.
Thank you, Kimi, for giving me this opportunity to answer this question. So, as we know, limited digital access has retarded learning processes for many girls in the world, and it is mostly felt in war and crisis areas. So, to minimize this effect felt by the digital divide, government and stakeholders should facilitate the access to modern information and communication technology in schools, as well as access and capacity building in digital skills for children at all levels. Parents too should be educated on the importance of digital access, because in most African communities, most parents have benchmarked the access to the internet at a certain age, and it is also let's say, a similar case in my community, because girls are granted this access at the age of 17, mostly when they have finished their high school studies. I too, for example, don't have that much access to the internet, because my dad thinks it is bad for me, that it's going to distract me and I'm going to get lower grades. But instead, I see it like the opposite. As we know, things are found on the internet. So instead, getting closer to the internet will help us girls for schools, meeting new people, and many other stuff. I also think traditional and cultural practices, as well as education systems and school curriculum, should be revised in the domain of digital access and computerized teaching. So an outstanding solution is the introduction of online and video classes. It is a solution which is already helping to close this digital gap, and it will also help more. It is important because it gives a reason why parents should get digital gadgets for their girls and boys as well. So I think it is also, as we know, the internet is not always safe. So there are also scammers and many other bad stuff there. But this can be avoided if girls are taught some digital skills, and it can be taught in programs like the Girl Boss program. The Girl Boss program is a program created in partnership with Global Glow and Launch Girls. This program introduces girls to basic principles of entrepreneurship and teaches need-to-know life and work skills of the 21st century, such as digital and proficiency, creativity, innovation, and critical thinking. Based on my experience in this program, it has helped me a lot because it has helped me in how to be safe on the internet, what to post and what not to post, like not posting some evil, like personal information about me. And I also got to learn about these young girls, climate activists, Greta Thunberg. I never heard of someone like that, and she is doing a very great impact because she's fighting for climate justice, and she's doing all of this through the internet. So I think the access to internet is very important as it sends the message of girls across the world, and it also gets us know new people and create social relationships with people across the world who should help us get closer to our dreams and goals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Indeed, in Africa, we really have problems in accessing internet. I am with you on that fight. And yes, information and access is everything in this area. Thank you for sharing with us your powerful. Now let's hear from the counselor Rivera, Gonzalez Rivera what he has to say to us. Mr.
Thank you, Kimi. Primero quisiera desearles a todas ustedes.
First of all, I'd like to wish you all a very happy International Girls' Day. You're an inspiration for our daily work at the UN, and we work actually for you. Now, to answer your question, from my country, from Peru, we are very concerned about the digital gap between countries and within the countries themselves. And it's been even greater during the pandemic. The access to an accessible and adequate technological infrastructure, internet, and communication skills, as you mentioned, for women, is essential for people's development today. That's why we believe that accessing the communication technologies, especially internet, should be seen from its social dimension as a catalyzer that enables to access other rights, to access education, health, work, or any other right. It is very important to be able to access communication technologies, and not having this access hinders development. That's why we should see it in its social dimension and as a right. It's a reality. Today's world is digital. Therefore, such access is essential for all. And as Isidora said, there's a discrimination or intersectional discriminations that we see in specific communities that suffer more than others from the lack of access to digital networks. In the United Nations, we've carried out a study that shows that there's a great digital gap. But when we talk about women and girls, this digital gap is even greater. That's why we need to work so that all of you have the same opportunities to develop yourselves, just like your male equals, and because all must be able to develop in the same conditions. So we need to recognize the existence of this gap as a problem, and if we want to solve it. In Peru, from the UN, we see that there's an awareness raising concerning this problem, and we are very aware of it, because in Peru 2 years ago, the Social Commission opened a project concerning digital gap in order to see whether people may be excluded if they don't have access to digital technologies. And so there are many resolutions about this topic, and this is an incentive so that you girls especially may develop your skills and carry out your dreams. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rivera. Yes, we really need to be accountable in the gaps that we are seeing around us. And after that, take action, not only for women and girls, but for all that are around us. Moving on to our next participant and panelist, Vanisha. What do you have to say about this aspect?
Thanks, Kimmy. I'd love to share my perspective. So according to the US Census Bureau, less than 27% of girls are filling projected STEM positions today. This shows that girls are bearing the brunt of the STEM achievement gap through less access, discrimination, or divide that is fueled early, right from the moment girls in rural areas and girls like my younger cousins grow up without access to the internet or technology, two very essential components for any STEM learning. I strongly believe non-formal education has played a big role in restructuring instruction to become all-encompassing, placing importance on advocating for minorities and fostering inclusive environments. In my mobile lab project, STEAM on Wheels, I designed STEAM in a Box, a collection of STEM kits, engineering tools, and books, which I use to host full-day hands-on workshops. It's cost-effective, it enriches educational structures already in place with the same set of equipment. Today, STEAM in a Box labs runs through the streets of Anandpur and beyond, and they're used regularly by 21 schools, impacting over 1,600 students and counting. Another solution method is partnering with schools and nonprofits. My nonprofit, Girls Crack the Code, has been able to promote non-formal education structures by connecting with schools and other organizations. To date, Girls Crack the Code has raised $45.5K from aspirations and technology grants. By partnering with several organizations in the USA serving Hispanic, African American, immigrant, refugee, and special needs students, we were able to host Women in STEM college and career panels, organize expos, and initiate bilingual camps, which impact hundreds of K-12 minority girls annually. All of this has shown me that the digital divide needs to be addressed from the bottom up, where the root of this issue lies. By targeting younger generations of students, we can increase digital literacy amongst girls that will eventually help every girl fulfill their STEAM dreams, become the next generation of activists, and connect with the world to lead change. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives with us, Vanisha. And yes, first of all, we need to empower to have access, not have access without empower. And thank you for do that with your girls and your fellows. Madam Pamela, what are your thoughts regarding these issues?
Thanks, Kimmy, for that introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here. When it comes to the digital divide and how this impacts adolescent girls, what's most important is that we need to start from a very tangible place of understanding and insight from adolescent girls directly. And for Girl Effect, this means data. And this is where our Girls on Mobile 2.0 research comes into play as a key solution in gathering insights directly from adolescent girls in order to feed into the solutions, as well as the policies being built for them, and bringing in addressing the gender data gap in this conversation about addressing the gender digital divide. And as an active member of the Generation Equality Forum Tech and Innovation Action Coalition, we really want to ensure that the Build Back Better approach for solutions in addressing the digital gender gap is really founded in the data, providing us with knowledge, understanding that can only be made available by rigorous research, noting that adolescent girls are a population that is historically under-researched. And much of the data points that we're referencing even during this conversation, we're talking about observations of just tens of girls that are coming as part of like a subset of a larger research. And we need to hear from thousands so that we can understand what solutions and policies we should be developing. So for us, in partnership with UNICEF and Vodafone America's Foundation, we'll focus on several country geographies and roll out a really peer-to-peer research approach, utilizing networks of adolescent girls who have been trained in research methodologies, and they'll be focusing on how to probe around understanding demand, access, and usage of mobile digital technologies. and for adolescent girls, and how this functions in the present day, as we understand that where we were a couple of years back is not where we are right now, as it's been impacted by the COVID pandemic. So this approach will allow us to unpack the mediating factors that can make accessing online spaces positive or negative for adolescent mental well-being, and overall just how adolescent girls want to lead the lives that they desire. Along the way of conducting this research, we'll be working with a youth panel to ensure that we are engaging and involving young people in a meaningful way at every stage of the study. We're really keen as well to hear a lot of the insights and information that have been shared today about what's going on in other geographies. We really also welcome and are looking for additional partners to help us scale the reach and depth of this work to benefit millions more girls across the globe. We really hope that this study can be the catalyst for more routine monitoring and the gender digital divide amongst adolescent girls. We really must be better at collecting, analyzing, and using data to inform the solutions that we create, and have this be the founding point of every step that we make. Thank you, Kimmy.
Thank you so much, Madam Pamela. Thank you for push for us girls, adolescent girls, and push action for us also. Now, let's move for our next question that is for girls, only for girls, that is, how do you want girls to be included in the closing digital divide? Isidora, can you share with us how do you want to see girls be included?
Yeah, of course. Well, this question was too difficult to answer for me because I was thinking about what girls can do. But then I realized about that we have to do a systematic change. And for that, we need governments. I want to start also with data according to the Inter-American Development Bank that nowadays we have the only 53.6% of people can use the internet globally. And that presents about gender barriers. More than half of the world's population of women, specifically 52%, still do not use the internet compared to the 42% of men. Concerning to this information, we have the knowledge that we need to apply digital inclusion. And this concept, of course, have different definitions, but I will base my speech on the New Zealand government that said that it as a final state where everybody has equal opportunities to access various services through technology. Well, this definition represents that it is not only to have connection to a computer, it's to know and recognize the good things that you could have with, of course, safely and responsibly. That's also why I believed that the different countries and governments must acknowledge that technology is access is a human right, even more in these times when everything has been doing by the online way. That's why I think that if we want to change systematically the things that are happening today in the digital barriers, we need to work with the governments, with the girls, together.
Thank you so much. Powerful, and powerful, Isidora. We need to have support from governments. Governments need to take action with us and not with them own selves. They need to speak with girls to know girls' perspectives and try to connect with them. Now, let's move and listen to the perspective from Vonisha. Vonisha, what do you have to say about this question?
Thank you, Kimmy. So from my experiences, many girls in rural areas are not even aware that there is a gap in digital literacy and access to technology. Girls with the resources and the awareness that this issue exists can take the lead in helping disconnected girls become aware of their rights that they're missing out on and understand who they can connect with. We can even take the next step by teaching these technologies and uniting these two groups of girls to advocate for getting internet and mobile access for all girls, overcome data costs, and promote literacy. I started by identifying and recognizing this issue in my communities. Every place has its own unique set of problems, so one approach won't apply everywhere. It can start off as simple as teaching a neighbor, friend, or family member how to use a mobile phone, to showing girls how they can access the internet safely and use it as a platform to connect with others. If more girls who are disconnected are empowered with technology through non-formal education and governmental support to solve problems in their communities, and if we provide access to the right digital tools, we can come together and become a powerful medium for creating change, inspiring others to fight for change, and making sure girls are not left out of the conversation, but a part of it. Thanks, Kimmy.
Thank you, Vanisha. Thank you for bringing this point that all parts of the world works like in the general, like with our own characteristics, not with all characteristics, because in all parts of the world we have different forms of communicate, of work, and others. Melissa, please share with us your thoughts about this question.
Thank you, Kimmy. For me, for girls to be included, first, we have a lot of sensitization has to be done around technology as a whole, as well as digital access, and this has to be done globally. And girls should be at the core of educating others on the importance of digital access and digital safety on the internet. As we all know, there are a lot of positive effects on girls having this access, and this importance should be taught to all parents, girls, women, boys, men, local, national, as well as international communities. And not to forget, we always have the disadvantage also, and this includes harassment, traffic, and scams. And I insist on this topic because on these negative effects, because girls are most at have a higher possibility, a higher risk at being victims of these scams and other harassment. So I think if this is done, it will reduce this harassment too. And due to the increase in this gender digital divide, we also have discrimination and violence, which also increases. So if this gap of digital access is being closed, it will help girls as getting digital access, reducing discrimination and violence against them. And all this it includes girls involving in the process of closing digital divide. Girls too should be involved in creating digital tools and online context, as well as revising educational systems and school curriculums in the domain of digital and computerized teaching. Thank you, Kimmy.
Thank you, Melissa. Yes, this is the first key to achieve access for all in digital spaces. Inclusion, information, and find the gap together, work together, and certainly achieve together. Thank you for answering this question. Now move to our next question that is only for representatives. Let me read a similar paragraph of ENFRAS. All action coalitions are called to make relevant actions and difference to make the world a better place for girls and others with their rights being respected. As part of your commitment to GAF, what provisions have you made to bridge the gender gap in digital access and competences? May you share with us your perspectives, Sir Seymour, Director Seymour, please.
Thank you. And most people call me Dan, Kimmy, but that's fine. So yeah, I mean, for those who maybe are less familiar, the Generation Equality event was a major gathering in Paris, 25 years on from the Beijing conference. And it looked at a range of issues around gender equality, but also importantly, it brought together governments, which we've talked about as important, the private sector, civil society and others in a multi-stakeholder partnership for change. And that was really one of the, I think, groundbreaking elements of it, that it was unusual that those partners would come together in a space like that. It was also groundbreaking that in the various sort of preparatory things we did and the ground laying events we had in the run up to the events in Mexico City and Paris, when that group were invited to and got together to identify their priorities, one of those 6 was technology and innovation. That's the first time that technology and innovation has been identified as a gender priority in a major international event. So that was a really a big deal. So we've been able to prioritize that as UN Women. We facilitate all of that. Now, in that space of the Action Coalition on Technology and Innovation, we have some pretty important partners who've come together to make it happen. And I just want to share that with you because I think it's important to understand that this group, which is there for all of us, but in particular accountable to the girl advocates that are here and that are online and that are not able to be with us as well. It reflects the accountabilities, if you like, of a wide group that we as UN Women are there to facilitate and enable. So you have governments, government of Armenia, of Chile, Finland, Rwanda, and Tunisia. You have civil society groups, the A+ Alliance, Digital Grassroots, the Global Fund for Women. You have foundations like the Rockefeller Foundation, but also private sector companies, Koch Holdings, Microsoft, and you have UNICEF. So these are important actors across a wide range of sectors coming together to try to make a change in this, because there's the recognition that this can't be done by advocates alone, that this is indeed, as people have said, the responsibility of government and also responsibility of private sectors and others. So within that Action Coalition, we've been able to work with colleagues and the adolescent girls who worked with us in particular to secure more than 150 commitments across a range of subjects, but maybe one of them, just to highlight, one of the priorities of the coalition is access to digital technologies and universal digital literacy. And there you have commitments around equitable opportunities for girls and young women to access digital tools and learn digital skills, improve investment in feminist technology and inclusive innovation ecosystems, creating new partnerships that intentionally put girls and young women at the center of designing learning solutions for their digital world as they experience it, and design of new tools, and Melissa was just talking about this, to prevent and eliminate online gender-based violence in its broadest sense on social media platforms. So these are all really important commitments. As UN Women, our job is as much to be the stage as it is the actor, and I think we've been doing that. And of course, the question that arises is, how do we hold actors accountable for the commitments that they make? And that's something that we'll be working, all of us together, on making sure happens. But yeah, so that would be, I think, one of the key things we've been doing in this area together with our partners. Thanks, Kimmy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Yes, it's really good that you are pushing action for girls together in Generation Equality Forum, but also good that you are learning and trying to take our self perspectives and girls' power. And yes, we only need that to achieve our real dreams, that is equality for all and equity for all. Let's move to Madame Pamela Malinga to hear her perspectives about the aspect, please. Madame Pamela.
Sorry, Kimi, do you mind to repeat the question again?
Sure. As part of your commitment to GEF, what provisions have you made to bridge the gender gap in digital access and competence?
Sure. I mean, I think it has to do with a lot of the approaches that I was referencing that we're taking with the Girls in Mobile 2.0 research, understanding that adolescent girls represent an under-researched population and that there's really little that we can say that we actually know about this population. A lot of the information that we utilize, as I was saying, is coming from these like subset of just tens, maybe hundreds of girls' voices, and we really want to be able to amplify that. And the approach that we take at Girl Effect is to amplify that by using girls to interview girls. So making sure that peers of the same group that can understand one another and where they're at when it comes to their digital access are truly the ones that are going to be utilized to capture what information needs to be conveyed to us, creating programs, creating policy, other solutions that we can utilize to inform and develop for girls.
Thank you, Madam Pamela. Yes, we need to have girls in command. For girls empower other girls and bring them a voice, a powerful voice, and creating a campaign together to shift power together. Now, let's move again for other question that is only for Action Coalition representatives and for adult allies. What plans do you have in plugging the digital divide that exists at the moment? Are there accountability measures in place? And what will be the role of girls? Let me repeat the question. What plans do you have in plugging the digital divide that exists at the moment? Are there accountability measures in place? And what will be the role of girls? Let's start with Mr. Seymour. What you have to say about this aspect, Ms. Seymour?
Well, thank you. Yeah, maybe I can sort of pick up again on the work of this Action Coalition, but specifically how it relates to your question on plugging the digital divide. And I also, I think it's a very smart thing to ask about accountability, because, as you know, as today's girl advocates know, and as girl advocates for a long time are well aware, commitments are not so hard to make, actually, but checking that they've actually been followed up on and delivered, that's the real work. So I mentioned before some of the areas of focus of the Global Acceleration Plan for the Action Coalition and all those partners. The ones I mentioned are the leaders in the Action Coalitions, but there's plenty more involved. So let me just sort of flag some headline commitments in there. And sorry, you can probably hear my son in the background. Digital Grassroots, which is the youth network leader of the coalition, committed to build the capacity of future internet leaders by engaging 1,000 young women in programs to strengthen internet literacy, internet health projects, and to implement, Pamela's been mentioning, action research on gender equality. We had a coalition of tech actors who announced a joint commitment in collaboration with the World Wide Web Foundation to tackle online gender-based violence and abuse and improve platforms within 2 years. And we had Twitter and TikTok, Google, and others in there. So I think those are important actors. And as a government commitment, the government of Rwanda committed to bridge the gender gap in digital access by 2026 in 3 specific areas. That's ownership of smartphones, which I talked about earlier, access to digital financial services specifically, and then Venetia and others have been talking about STEM studies at upper secondary and so on. So you have within that Action Coalition that, I say that we're facilitating as UN Women some really, really important commitments. Now, if I could just sort of turn just briefly then on accountability. We are still working. I don't want to give the impression that we've completely finalized this, but we are very determined to make sure we have clear and effective accountability measures, because again, these commitments mean nothing without accountability. And I just want to highlight here the role that girls will play in achieving that accountability. So I think it's really, and you have made a number of points, Kimi, you and others, about the power of girls in making this happen. So I really, I want to just, my final things, focus a bit on that. Youth networks have been the co-creators of this coalition, and they will continue to be involved by us as UN Women in co-designing all of these accountability measures. It's really, really important to us that the youth networks have a voice in this and are guiding us in developing the accountability measures that will deliver for them. There is an adolescent girl advisory board that emerged after the forum to ensure that girls are co-leaders on implementation and that their participation is institutionalized in that system of accountability that I was talking about. And there are youth movements all around the world that are going to continue to be advocates and to hold leaders accountable, whether they're in government or private sector and others. And this is all really, we think, an absolute prerequisite. It is impossible, we think, for there to be genuine accountability for these very important commitments that we've secured without girls and young women being at the center of designing them, forcing them and tracking them and holding leaders to account. And that's the way that we see, one key way that we see girls and young women being at the center of designing solutions for what is their digital world, as both in its own right and as an engine and a catalyst for transformational change for gender equality more broadly. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, having girls' perspectives and having girls part of actions is everything. And using social medias to impact others, it's really good. But also thank you for sharing all points that are and our actions that are coming with action coalitions also. Let's move to Madame Pamela again. Please, can you answer the question, Madame Pamela? So sorry. I'm so focused on getting all information in that.
Sure. I mean, when it comes to accountability, it's a lot of the things that I've already kind of laid out for you when it comes to our Girls on Mobile 2.0 research, using peers to interview peers in order to ensure that the information and insights that we get that we can later take action on are really truly representative of where girls are at in terms of their demand, access, and usage. Also, when it comes to the approach that we're taking, ensuring that while we're going on this exploratory journey with girls, that we're also taking a moment to go back at the end to validate the information that we've been able to kind of come around through our research. So ensuring that, if we've captured that however many thousands of girls have said this, have we gone back to them to confirm that this information truly represents where they're at? Is there more nuance to it? Because there's just so much information from girls that we just have not seen yet, because we're not asking girls in the way that they need to be asked. So it's really ensuring that we're taking that youth panel along the way with us so that we can be kind of put in check. Are we going about this the right way? Are we asking the right people? Are we reaching the broad enough scope? Are we achieving intersectionality as been brought up here? And having that level of accountability of the actual population that we're trying to serve us to do better at the work that we're trying to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Madame Pamela. You brought a really good question to our round table. Are we doing the correct question for girls? Are we creating the correct actions for girls? So I think that the chat box, the people that are watching us can ask that in the chat box. And let's move to our Councillor Rivera. And please, Councillor Rivera, give your answers and your talks about the question.
Gracias, Kimi, nuevamente. Sobre la pregunta que
Thank you, Kimi. In regards to this question, I'd like to show you and present to you the perspective of my country at a national level in the first place. In Peru, we are adopting measures to ensure that all people who have no access to digital communication, especially internet, and who live in rural areas, can have access. We are working hard to provide infrastructure and technical equipment that is very important, and also capacity building so that people learn how to use the tablets and laptops, etc. We see that in the rural areas, the digital gap is even greater, affecting mostly girls. and that takes away their right to access education. And in the multilateral area in the United Nations, for example, Peru is promoting a resolution called Promoting Social Integration Through Social Inclusion. And for the second year, we are emphasizing the closing of this digital gap as the means to help all those people who are affected by that, especially girls. So girls and women are more included in society and can actively participate in it, so to exercise their rights and develop their capacities fully. This social inclusion implies participating actively in order to build a better society in which you are the main actors and not only viewers. In terms of accountability, that's something we need to work on, I admit. But we see in Peru that we're very committed to gender equality, and we want to achieve a world in which girls can contribute in the best way to their societies. And in that point, you are extremely important. As you said, we are persons, we are people, but we're different. So you need to show us the importance of these subjects. Why is closing the digital gap so important? What are the realities that we need to fight? Show us what we're doing wrong so that we can correct that. And just to conclude, I'd like to invite you all, girls, not to despair. Don't give up. Keep fighting to reach your dreams and keep preparing for the future, because you in the future will be the leaders of our societies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So powerful your message, Councillor Rivera. You inspired me right now to don't give up, and I think that you inspired all girls that are watching us to don't give up about their rights. Don't give up about being a girl, and don't give up about fight for your rights, please. And yes, having skills and digital literacy is everything that we need right now. Not tomorrow and not after tomorrow, but right now, because we are in a century that we need technology for work. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing all your perspectives to this roundtable discussion. We should be accountable to the actions that are happening around the world, and also be really clear about the impacts that we want to create in girls' lives. Whether it is in terms of economic or social situations and cultural norms, these points shouldn't be a topic of discussion in this century. They should be in action. Please continue to interact with us and comment what you think about this discussion in the chat box. Now, let's see how the graphic recorder is going. Can you share with us, Ipsita? Wow, so powerful. It comes all the information that we discussed right now in this roundtable. We need an intersectionality approach. Yes, we need it. And you become like putting the points one by one, and it's so powerful that you bring it all them and you put it like digital generation. It's our generation. It's really our generation topic team. So it's really amazing work. Thank you so much, Ipsita, for sharing with us. Over to you, Fatima.
Thank you, Ipsita, for sharing that informative and very beautiful graphic with us. And thank you, Kimi, and all the participants and representatives of Roundtable 1 for being such exceptional as well as powerful speakers and leaders. It was indeed a very impactful conversation. With that, it is now time for the second roundtable discussion on the theme Girl Activists in Digital Space. Over to Pratiksha to guide us through.
Thank you, Fatima. Feminist movements for women and girls' rights, as we have known them, have often lacked inclusivity. Activism was not in reach for many of the girls who needed it the most, whose challenges and needs were different and needed to be brought to attention. With the internet revolution paving the way for a new iteration of activism, feminists, especially girls, have found a new voice and are raising key issues that they or the girls in their community face. Without equal access to technology and the internet, girls and women are not able to equally participate in our ever more digital societies. Holding back girls and women in this area affects every aspect of their lives, including their ability to speak out and campaign on issues that affect them. Moreover, if girls and women are not involved in creating digital tools and online content, it may exacerbate existing inequalities. The internet should be a right and not a privilege, especially in times like this pandemic. The social and economic paradigms are shifting, and we need to take this leap together. Over 90% of jobs worldwide already have a digital component, and most jobs will soon require sophisticated digital skills. If governments equip girls with digital skills through prioritizing education in ICT subjects, they will help girls thrive in economies where routine work has been automated and digital skills are prized. We have with us today amazing girls who have fought through this discrimination and have taken to the internet to raise their voice for the girls of their community. Before beginning with the roundtable discussion, I would like to take this moment to encourage all our participants in the webinar to continue engaging with us. We would love to hear your ideas on the questions being put forward in this event. Allow me to introduce you to the panelists for this roundtable discussion. Our girl activists participating in this roundtable are Susan from Save the Children Bolivia and Louise, working with UNICEF. Our guest speakers for this roundtable are Ma'am Stacey June Shelton, Global Head of Education and Advocacy, Dove Self-Esteem Project with UNICEF, and Dr. Julita Onabanjo, Director of the Technical Division, UNFPA. With this, we move to the first question we have for the panelists of our second roundtable. My opening question to all our activists and speakers is, how can we use technology to support or address issues impacting girls' livelihoods? I'd like to take Susan's response to this question first. Susan, you have the floor.
Hola nuevamente. Respecto a la pregunta.
Thank you again. Regarding the question, in order to tackle the issues that impact girls, we need to give them free access and safe access to technologies, to the information that we can get from it. And we need to know what are the consequences of not having this access. Because not having access creates a barrier to education, studies, etc. During and after the pandemic, we have seen a crisis in the youth, especially the girls who did not have access to technologies to have a favorable education. I was a witness of that. I saw so many classmates and girls in my communities who could not access the classroom because they did not have the means to do that. They didn't have internet access or the means to buy a computer or a cell phone with an internet connection. This has exacerbated discrimination and social differences. And as a consequence, we don't get proper education or access to the means to access this education. So we need to provide the technological means and teach the girls how to use them, because we might have access to a computer, but we might not know how to use it, or we might not know, for example, what are the advantages of using social networks. Over 52% of the girls, for example, who use social networks are facing harassment online. and they're not in a safe space because they don't know how to use them. So they can be victim of human trafficking, among other dangers. So, and that is all because we don't have the right information on how to use these platforms. So the most important thing is to give free and safe access and to be part of an active society in technology in the rural areas, especially in indigenous sectors who are the most isolated ones. We need to focus on those girls to achieve digital literacy. Thank you very much.
Indeed, thank you, Susan, for your response. And I quite agree with you that eliminating threats and risk in social networks is key to encouraging women's participation in the digital space. Next up, I invite Louise to put forward her views on this question. Louise, you now have the floor.
I think a central aspect of technology is that it has a huge potential to create connections, and these connections have the power to promote dialogues about issues affecting girls' lives, which can have a huge capacity for aggregation and lead to mass mobilization. And in Brazil, for example, we've had a huge national advocacy campaign led by girls to fight menstrual poverty with bills approved in several states, and none of that would have been possible if the girls who were part of the movement were digital illiterate or hadn't had access to technological devices. So I believe that when addressing the problems we as girls face, tech's a really powerful tool for activism. It's that we can also use tech as a tool to spread information, which can really help girls to expand their perspectives, be more inspired, or acquire information they might need in the future work environment. So we can really use tech to create a space where girls have access to information that might help them to gain their own independence, and also where they are able to have their voices, who unfortunately are often silenced, uplifted. However, none of this is possible if girls around the world still have so many barriers to access technology, which is why stakeholders and societies in general need to work towards democratizing it. But generally, I believe tech should be used as something that promotes innovative social interaction and the accessibility of information that are important to girls around the world.
Thank you, Louise, for your very thoughtful ideas and views. I now invite Ms. Shelton to share her views on the question with us.
Thank you so much, Pratiksha and Susan and Louise and the other speakers for having me here today and our partners at UNICEF. Yes, my name is Stacey June Shelton. I'm from the Dev Self-Esteem Project, where we aim to build up body confidence in young people and help them reach their full potential. So far, we've reached over 69 million to date across 150 countries. And we know that tech, more than ever, is an important kind of core channel for intervention delivery, especially during the pandemic, as everyone said in the first roundtable, and that these core issues, such as self-esteem and body confidence, we need to address more than ever. You know, yesterday was World Mental Health Day, and there's, as the recent studies on social media have come out, we know that the negative impacts on our mental health and young people's body image that can come as a source of tech. So because of our mission of reaching 250 million by 2030, we know we were not going to be able to do that without tech and without partners like UNICEF and Girl Effect and other kind of tech partners out there in the world that we want to work together with. We're constantly looking for those platforms that girls like the most, adapting, co-designing content with them to be delivered. And this is essential to us reaching our goals. We would love to see not only the systemic and environmental changes in tech, but also increase those kind of individual level education as well. An example of that individual level education is our chatbots that we've created in partnership with UNICEF, the Center for Appearance Research, digital agency Talk to You in Brazil, and that's launching this week. We're so excited. We've had to pivot a lot during the last couple of years. We have platforms in Philippines where we've placed our school modules with education partners there.
developing some other digital content with Girl Effect as well. And we know that we need to ensure technology solutions are available to all girls, co-designed with them, and help support their kind of overall comprehensive development. The access to the health, education, information, kind of that finding their own tribe, as Louise said, using tech as activism is really powerful. And we hope that we can do a lot more in the body activism space using technology. So thanks so much for having me here today on this wonderful day on IDG, and looking forward to the conversations later. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am, for your response and for being a part of this event. Indeed, your passion and commitment and the work you've done for the cause of body confidence with emphasis on mental health it's commendable. We thank you for inspiring us today. Your support adds power to our voice. I now invite Dr. Onabanjo to respond to our question.
Thank you, Prataksha. And before I respond, I simply have to say how truly excited I am to be part of this Speak Out event and to hear how girls across the world today voice and advocate for that digital inclusion and defend this as a human right, and how you're coming together and connecting. So I say, viva, girls, viva. On behalf of all of us at UNFPA, the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency, we send a loud shout out to all girls in all their diversity and ability everywhere as we celebrate with you our dear digital generation today, International Day of the Girl Child. Let me also take this opportunity to restate, and I'm doing all this because I think much of the messages that have come out will be re-echoed throughout the rest of this panel, etc. So I really wanted to just restate how UNFPA strongly commits and supports efforts worldwide to ensure we fulfill the aspirations of every girl, leaving none behind. So Prataksha, to respond to the question, and I'm going to take it from the issues of livelihoods and really following from what you've all been saying. I think it's clear to ensure girls' livelihoods for the future, their jobs, as you talked about, requires us to invest in girls' education today. But within those girls' education, I want to put on the table life skills as part of building and acquisitioning sort of information and skills that ensure, and I'm going to come to it from a health agency, autonomy, well-being, and safety perspective, including as it relates to matters on sexual and reproductive health and rights, and indeed on bodily autonomy and on decisions. And I say that because indeed, we know that a lot of adolescent girls have unplanned or unwanted pregnancies. A lot of adolescent girls are forced into early marriage. A lot of adolescent girls in their childhood are sexually assaulted. And we know these will curtail a girl's aspirations and set her back in her ability to thrive, to survive, and to reach her full potential, including in conversations as we're doing now, how she then can become the tech savvy that she needs and how she can get her family out of poverty, etc. And so across the world, UNFPA with partners have really leveraged the transformation that we see in technology to really educate, to enable and to empower girls and to ensure that their own sexual and reproductive health rights don't set them back in any way. And I'll give you sort of three very quick examples. One is in Southern Africa. I used to work in Eastern Southern Africa under a program called Safeguard Young People. UNFPA has co-designed and developed with young people a smartphone-enabled platform called TuneMe. And this site has reached more than 10.5 million young people, boys and girls alike, with social and behavioral change messages and comprehensive sexuality education that goes beyond what people perceive as comprehensive sexuality education, but also to things about self-esteem and self-assertiveness. We believe that building digital platforms where girls can access important life protecting and empowering skills is indeed a smart and the right investment. And we're trying to build the evidence and what we call the investment cases that ensures that governments know that this is a smart investment. If you invest this, your returns are this fold. two other quick points. In what Danielle had highlighted, my colleague from UN Women in the earlier roundtable, affordability, and I think a lot of us talking about the cost of digital gadgets and infrastructure, and indeed to what extent that puts families out in terms of income in the community. Will they choose to buy their daughter a computer or data or airtime? And UNFPA in Benin, in partnership with MTN Foundation, through its Tech for Girls empowerment efforts, supports girls to not only embrace IT sector, but really providing that scholarship, that cost of school fees to actually go to local tech schools. And maybe the last thing from Southern Africa is this, the leveraging opportunities that the digital cash transfer actually presents. And we have something in East Africa called M-Pesa. It's a money app. And we've shown how through that we can support families in keeping daughters in school by paying school fees, but also providing micro grants for young entrepreneurs. So let me stop there and just try and, in that response, link livelihoods to really sexual and reproductive health and some of the means in that. Back to you, Protection.
Thank you, ma'am. It's so inspiring to hear you speak for the cause of the digital inclusion of girls in this era of technology. Thank you for being with us today. We're honored to have you amongst us. We're truly appreciative of your support. Thank you, Dr. Onabanjo and Ms. Shelton, for your responses to our questions. Thank you, Susan and Louise, for your answers. You've brought up a very important point of making internet harassment free and accessible for girls. And it's really important that our representatives are mindful of that. My next question is specifically for our girl activists. How do you want to see technology being used to support the health and well-being of girls? I invite Susan to respond to the question first.
Disculpe, ¿me podrías repetir la pregunta? No pude escuchar bien.
Excuse me, could you please repeat the question? I couldn't hear it well.
Sure, I'd repeat it for you. How do you want to see technology being used to support the health and well-being of girls?
Bueno, gracias. Respecto a la pregunta.
Thank you. Concerning this question, I would love to use programs focused on health, physical and psychological for girls. I would like to implement programs so that girls are informed on their rights, because many girls don't know, many of us girls don't know our rights. And I would also love all of us to be able to access information, as the lady, can't remember, Julita. I think it would be good to have information on sexuality, on education, on family, and also on the access to social networks. I would love to have training workshops on these media, and I would like to have spaces where girls could get information that affects them. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for your response. Let's hear from Louise what she has to say about this question.
Well, I think I want to see technology being used to support the health and well-being of girls from an intersectional point of view, where those who design tech-related products consider and respect the different backgrounds and experiences of girls around the world. So I think it's extremely important that the information produced by tech reflects the real needs of girls in their communities, and that these girls have the digital literacy to filter information that might be helpful for them. And at this point, I would also like to discuss a bit about the importance of remodeling the ways we've been using algorithms so that we can support even more girls in the future. Unfortunately, up to the point, we have seeing some problems regarding algorithmic biases that are often a result of the unequal representation of women in data sets used to create artificial intelligence models, for example. And this can really hurt girls, especially when we consider that these algorithms can influence search results or target marketing, which can cause negative repercussions in girls' mental health, for example. So I think it's really important for algorithms to start being used more responsibly so that they can actually help girls. And I also like to see technology being used in a more democratic way. And currently this is not the case due to the often high cost of gadgets and due to the fact that a lot of girls do not have access to information about how to navigate through internet or access reliable information about general topics or even more specific ones, such as the ones related to sexual and reproductive health, which is something really important for girls' health in general. So for addressing this issue, there are a range of possibilities, such as creating more user-friendly and intuitive interfaces, more apps and platforms with different languages, and promoting, and I think this part is the most important one, which is to promote an active inclusion of girls and women during the tech creation process. And by doing that, I truly believe that we will be promoting girls' empowerment everywhere, and we will be being more considerate of their needs. Thank you.
Indeed, Louise and Susan, your answers have provided us with valuable insight for today's discussion about internet safety and affordability of technology, and I'd like to thank you for that. My next question goes specifically to our guest speakers for today. How are you ensuring that girls are being included in technology solutions, addressing issues that girls are facing? I'd like to invite Dr. Onabanjo to respond to this question first.
Thanks, Protectia. And allow me to state up front that we so see positive trends as young girls take the center stage and the rightful place in the frontiers of technology. And you know, I really want to appreciate some of the discussions we've had today at STEM and just personally reflect back some 5 decades ago, because, you know, as you see my gray hair, it's a long time back, where technology not even was envisioned. I think my first phone was in my late 20s, and it was one of those big bulky things. I did my dissertation, my first degree, on a typewriter, you know, and I was privileged. So I really think that, you know, progress is being seen, and you know, I hope and I encourage that we all accelerate and really take action much more quicker as technology advances. But I really am thrilled to have met all of you and to see what you're all doing. I think the work we do with you, with young people, we really take very seriously this principle about nothing for us without us. And indeed, technological interventions, especially digital technology, has really ignited this new life of this participatory and co-creation role. And allow me to share with you a story of a girl that we're profiling, and we're profiling a lot of girls today on this special day. So please go to UNFPA's social media and website. But Nkama is an 18-year-old girl who, she is from Mongolia. And when she was 18, she had to drop out of school because she became pregnant in her 10th grade. Now she's recently helping us test out a chatbot called Mandukai, which helps young users find sexual and reproductive health information and services. And this was especially important in the time of COVID, where indeed, you know, it was only through these sorts of interactions that girls could take self-care, they could talk about some of the mental health issues that we've talked about. Another example is, in partnership we share with UNDP taking the lead. It's brought millions of young social entrepreneurs together under an umbrella on the continent called Youth Connect. And I think this is a mentorship-driven program that again speaks to how collectively we can work together to design innovative technology solutions that are driven bottom up for challenges that we see. And I think that's been echoed today. But we know we're a long way to go. And I think the data, as not as accurate as we would like it to be. And I to call out with Pamela for data that's disaggregated, that really tells the true picture of the gender digital inequalities. This just can't continue. And this is why UNFP has made important commitments in its new strategic plan. But as part of the Generation Equality Forum, again, that Daniel gave so much breath to, as to what we're all as the UN collectively trying to do. We are looking not only at current technologies, but frontier technologies, so artificial intelligence, and really, again, how young people can center their current innovations, but also think future to better respond to clearly the current needs, but also the future needs. And so these are just some of the things that we are doing as UNFPA to really make sure that we can, ride on the technology transformation. But I think the call is now we know some of this, urgency is key. Back over to you, Protection.
Thank you, ma'am, for your response. And thank you for sharing this anecdote and your work with us. I'd like to direct the same question towards Ms. Shelton. Ma'am, how are you ensuring that girls are being included in technology solutions, addressing issues that girls are facing? Over to you.
Thank you. Yes, and similar to the commitments made during Generation Equality Forum at UNFPA, we have also made those same commitments at Dove and Unilever for kind of co-designed learning solutions with girls and young women. So we are committed to that throughout, and there's a lot of reasons why, and I'll share that. We know that girls are impacted by body image issues disproportionately to boys. So the solutions we design with and for girls, we know will have a bigger impact when delivered either in or on different co-ed channels and platforms. 54% of girls around the world do not feel good about the way they look. So they're waking up, not feeling good about their body, not happy, not able to function in life. And this we know has an impact not only on the physical behaviors, mental health, stress, anxiety, depression, all the way to suicidal ideation, educational attainment, and most importantly, a girl's agency and gender equity. We know that we talk about body image as a public health issue, a social justice issue, how it intersects with things on appearance discrimination and racism that's happening in technology on these platforms, and a girl's and gender equality. So more than ever, addressing body image using tech is really crucial, especially as I mentioned before. We know in the recent hearings in the US Senate and in the Wall Street Journal article around how social media can be a source of constant social comparison and appearance pressures. We know of cyberbullying and the horrible impacts that can have, appearance-based discrimination, as I mentioned, and racism. We want to ensure that across all the tools we develop, we engage with girls and young women along the entire process, just as Luis asked for. We are doing that. We actually have kind of this 8-step process to developing an intervention, and there's 5 of them that we would have a touch point with girls and young women across the entire process. So really critical to us that we engage with young people. And for example, in the chatbot we've developed in Brazil, similar to UNFPA using a chatbot mechanism, we have worked with our partners at UNICEF, the chatbot that's launching this week for IDG, and we started developing the messaging and coming up with the issues based on insights gained by speaking to over 2,000 young people across 11 provinces in Brazil before we even began the process. And 75% of those were female identifying. We created this, like I said, UNICEF, Talk to You is a digital agency, our partners from the Center for Appearance Research and local academics in Brazil. So this is a girl-led digital solution in Brazil. It's called Toppity, and you can look for that coming out this week. And now we have plans to do that globally. And as we do that, we would then start the whole process, informative research along the way with young people, informing what we want. And then we have testing points as well. So we're testing for acceptability, likability, impact. So yeah, this co-design process is really essential to us. Like I said, it led us to understand not only the themes to address, but it just helps ensure that we have the right language to use, because maybe the kind of clinical academic language that we use isn't the same language that young people would use. So in these chatbots that we want to act as like the character would be an older peer, this co-design process with girls really helps ensure, that the intervention will be accepted and well understood by our audience. We do this across all interventions, actually, whether they're kind of on ground, digital. In fact, our overall strategy on the Dove Self-Esteem Project is informed by girls and young women. We have a Dove Youth Board. You can check out our Dove post today. It introduces some of the youth board members and them talking about why they want to be a part of the process, be part of Dove Youth Board. We have 22 members from 6 continents who we engage with on our strategy, intervention, ideation, and development, and just overall insights around what are those body image pressures locally. So we're firmly committed to work alongside girls and young women collaboratively to develop these solutions. Like I said, we made that commitment in the Generation Equality Forum. And we know this will not only help empower girls, but equally important to us, this just helps ensure that we get the impact we want to have. Why put an intervention out there that, well, for one, we don't want it to do harm, but why put an intervention out that's not making the impact we want it to? There's no reason to invest behind that. And I do work in a business, so we always have to have a good business case for things. So making sure it has the impact we want it to, it's acceptable, likable, engagement, and just good uptake overall are all important reasons to engage with girls throughout the co-design process. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your work with us. It's reassuring to hear, to know that change is happening. My next question to our guest speakers is something that our girl activists have been speaking about a lot in their responses and have been very keen to emphasize in this discussion of ours on digital inclusion. What measures are being taken to ensure the safety of girls in the digital world? I'd like Dr. Onabanjo to respond to this question first. Ma'am.
Thank you again, Taksha. And in a way, I'm really glad that this has come up quite strongly in the conversation all through today. And the reality that Stacey has spoken about in terms of, what the world is seeing and now understanding in terms of the negative impacts of some of the online things and how this is the time to act. So in fact, indeed, technology is that double-edged sword. We're working on it, and I think COVID really showed to us definitely that gender-based violence in all its forms, sort of increased in this time of COVID. And we really are working with partners to bring to the forefront the gravity of what we've sort of defined or loosely defined as technology-facilitated gender-based violence. This is committed, assisted, aggravated, or amplified by using information and communication technologies or digital medias, including, as we know, the phones, the texting, and linking that even online to offline spaces like geo-positioning systems, tracking people, and then really, so it really is a place where, we really do feel it brings risk. In fact, a recent study indicated just over half young women, that's 1 in 2, have experienced harassment on social media platforms, with the most common type being the abusive, insulting, and some of the body shaming and threats to sexual violence. And in fact, when you look at that in the same cohort of young adolescent girls, it's over double the global estimates of 1 in 4 that experience actually physical and sexual violence from an intimate partner. So it's huge. And so while the world, especially this is a time, I think, when we all thinking about building back better and looking at policies, etc. And I do think this is the time that we need to look at regulation and copyrights. We see that intellectual assets on the online get regulated. Efforts to safeguard and sanction are ongoing. But when it comes to girls and women's bodies, they're few and far between. And these provide these loopholes in technology facilitated GBV tends to just help breed the impunity that we see around gender-based violence. So we need to work on two fronts. And I think that's what I've heard today as well. One is really to create the systems, the partnerships, the mechanisms between service providers, digital rights, feminist youth movements, state legislators, and the private sector, really to enable women and young people to seek support and quickly address any technology facilitated gender-based violence. There's a whole field that we need to be working there. While on the other hand, it's obviously to put those skills into the hands of young people themselves, so they understand when they're being, when they're getting down the dark websites and they're pulled into all sorts of things, and they can actually feel empowered and enabled and assertive to put a stop to that and speak out on it. And so what we are doing through all our comprehensive sexuality education programs, we're building this element of capacity and skills for girls to recognize and not fall victim to cyber and digital violence. There's a lot of work that's being done within the UN system as well. And I really want to draw attention to the World Web Foundation and what law enforcement agencies have looked into as to where countries are on this and benchmarked it, and then made commitments to address and safeguard and sanction it. So I think collectively as a community, we must work. But I know this might be my last time to just say a really thank you again for us being part of this. Our message today is one of strong belief in the power of girls to transform the world. And that word power has come up many times. And in a way, we really want to just share and in full partnership and solidarity with all of us here, that this investment in the girl child is the most important investment the world can make at this time. We can't afford to miss this right of your choices, your chance to thrive, and really for us and the world to miss out on what girls can achieve. So let's get it right for girls and young people today, for our world today and our world tomorrow. Thank you, Protection.
Thank you, ma'am. And I've just been notified that we're running a little short on time, but I'll just like to take Ms. Shelton's response to the same question. What measures are being taken to ensure the safety of girls in the digital world? Please respond.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick. I know we're running out of time. I think, safety is so important. The pressures on appearance, the social comparisons, the bullying, we need to make it a safe space, but tech and the digital world are so powerful for activism and finding your own tribe and sharing really positive content as well. So what we want to do just around kind of body image and mental health is we don't talk about don't use them, but we talk about what can we do? How can we use them for good? How can we develop skills to stand up to those pressures? And even in our kind of on-ground programs, school programs, face-to-face, just as Louise was talking about having digital literacy, we always include social media literacy in our content because media is one of the kind of leading modifiable risk factors for someone's body image. So developing those skills, and being safe online is just a core component of our curriculum. Data shows, recent studies have come out that Facebook, Instagram know their own data and pressures on mental health, but we have other, several external studies that show all those pressures. Data shows that girls who spend 2 hours on social media have lower body image compared to those who spend less. We also know that technology can be used for good, and it's not only just the platform or the time, but it's also how you're using it. Are they passively scrolling, making social comparisons? So that's what we teach about is, be aware of the social comparisons we're making, how dangerous they are, the cost emotionally, physically to you, and what are the other techniques we can do to stand up to those pressures. Again, I know I keep talking about it, but it's one of the reasons we've developed the chatbot on Facebook Messenger with UNICEF. We're also developing in Indonesia a social guided journey on Facebook and Instagram with Girl Effect. So important for us to be there on those platforms, interrupt, disrupt, and offer the solutions. And that's what we'd love. We'd love to come together with partners and lobby for some policy and platform changes. Like, why can't we have social media literacy course at sign-on for any social media channel, just to help prepare young people for what they're going to face and the pressures and those skills to stand up to it. Just like learning to drive a car and getting a license, you have to learn the obstacles, skills to avoid them, dangers on the road you might face. And I think our digital world would be a much safer place if we could get these interventions, or the chatbot, guided social media literacy out and widely accessible to every girl, so that they can harnessing the power of technology to get them out on these platforms. So, and the pressures are not only at the individual level. It's a bit unethical to only put the pressures on and educate young people. There absolutely are platform changes and policy changes, algorithm changes. Why can't we incentivize businesses and brands and influencers to have more positive content, or tax them for dangerous content? Why can't we ban harmful products from being advertised online? What about platform changes to make, like, rephrase content or quick messaging to brands that have unhealthy content? There's a lot of things we'd love to do, not by ourselves, but with our partners like UNICEF, UNFPA, Girl Effect, many others. We'd love to join forces together, and girls, most importantly, to figure out how can we make this a safer place. So a lot of changes that need to be made still. Absolutely, we are taking actions to ensure safety as well. In all of our online interventions, we would want to, when we're working with our partners to develop them, we want to be sure there's a safe support system, referral networks in place in case any kind of sensitive personal issues come up when we're learning and talking about body image issues and mental health. So safety is critical to us. But yeah, thank you so much for inviting me here today to speak. And I look forward to working with you all in the future. We at Dove want to ensure there's a safe space and there's equal access for the next generation of girls to be the digital generation. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your enlightening words. This discussion has certainly helped girls connect with all our representatives and engage in constructive and meaningful dialogue that helps bring the issues girls face into the spotlight. With this, we come to the end of our second roundtable. I thank all our activists and our guest speakers for their inspiring responses, and hope that this has been an engaging discussion for you all.
That was a truly fruitful roundtable discussion. It's so encouraging to see us girls realize the power and potential that we hold as we progress and converse on such significant issues in the society. Thank you, Pratiksha, and all the participants and representatives of Roundtable 2 for that wonderful discussion. Over to Kimi to share the graphic with us.
Thank you, Fatima. How powerful discussion that you had. Let's see the final version of the graphic recording. Ipsita, can you share with us? Amazing, so amazing and so powerful design that you had creating for us in this journey. It comes everything that we discussed today in an expressive and artistic way. You express all the talks that we had, and you touch it one by one. 1. Improved accessibility to digital devices. 2. Offer system scholarship to girls. 3. Creating safe space online, addressing the digital bullying, yes, abuse and harassment. Thank you so much for joining us, Ipsita, and for taking so much care in creating this recording graphic. So now I would like to turn over to the Deputy Permanent Representative of the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Bigi Koshigit.
Thank you
The
very
floor
much.
is yours.
Thank you very much, Kimi, for giving me the floor. Dear girls and distinguished participants, we are once again delighted to take part in this excellent and vibrant program. As we proudly mark the 9th year of the International Day of the Girl Child, I thank Canada and Peru for co-hosting this event with us. Our special thanks also go to the Working Group on Girls, as well as UNICEF, UN Women, and UNFPA for making this event possible. But above all, my warmest congratulations go to the girls here who have shared their views and stories with us. You will agree with me that Girls Speak Out continues to be a unique and innovative event that enables the participation of the girls as the real stakeholders. Dear girls, Bonisha, Louise, Suzanne, Isidora, Melissa, Kimi, Fatima, Pratiksha, we have listened to you very carefully. And let me tell you that you inspired us immensely. They say that to ask the right question is already half the solution of a problem. The issues you have raised today are quite pertinent to address the challenge we face globally. New technologies and the COVID-19 pandemic have radically transformed our lives, learning platforms and jobs. If we want the digital revolution to become a reality for all, we have to bridge the digital divide in connectivity, devices and use, skills and jobs. By the same token, there will be no gender equality without addressing the digital gender divide, where we see gender gaps in connectivity, skills, jobs, and online safety. Many of you rightfully highlighted the importance of digital inclusion and specifically digital literacy, which is becoming just as crucial to well-being and success as the ability to read and write these days. And at this point, I would like to underline one major aspect of the digital gender divide. This is the gap in participation in science, technology, engineering, and math, also known as STEM fields. STEM used to be referred as where the future lies. Now we have to adjust it and say that it is where the present is shaped. When girls are encouraged to participate more in STEM education, they would not only thrive, but also make a big difference for their communities. And as we conclude our event, I would like to extend our gratitude once again to the girl activists and advocates who shared their strong messages today. You are role models for millions of girls who face similar challenges. Your motivation and determination around the right issues will make the world a better place, and we will support you till the end. And with these thoughts, I would like to thank you all once again for making and marking this important day with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and thoughts with us, ma'am. And with that, we have reached the end of our event today. It is so encouraging to see a spark of hope and change now become a burning flame sweeping across the globe. Malala, in her speech at the United Nations, said that I am not a lone voice. I am many. I am Malala, but I'm also Shazia. I'm Mizan. I'm Amina. I'm those 66 million girls who are deprived of education. Today, after witnessing these powerful girls speak out, in Malala's words, I'm not just Fatima. I'm Pratiksha and Kimi, working ardently towards inclusion. I'm Isidora, as she urges for the inclusion of disabled girls in digital spaces. I'm Louise, as she spreads her message of hope. I'm Bonisha, as she urges girls with resources and awareness to take the lead in helping disconnected girls become aware of their rights. I'm Susan, as she works towards providing digital spaces for the underprivileged through her campaign. I'm young Melissa, as she voices out global threats against girls and women. I am every one of these 2.2 billion girls who do not have access to digital spaces.
This is definitely not the end of the discussion. This is just one more action that calls for all people around the world to push and act for equality and equity, not only in digital access and space, but also in all spheres of society. For those of you that are making commitments for girls' empowerment, please be accountable. For those of you that are in decision-making positions, please be careful with your actions. For those of you that continue pushing for action and attention around girls' lives, please continue fighting the good fight. And for everyone else, please join us and take actions. Thank you. Obrigada. Kanimambu. Over to you, Pratiksha.
Indeed, Kimi. This is just a first step in the direction of equity and equality for all the women and girls around the world, and also a small beginning to shape the future of our generation. I thank you all for joining us today and also for being a part of this great movement. Thank you also to all our co-sponsors of today's event, the Permanent Mission of Canada to the United Nations, the Permanent Mission of Peru to the United Nations, the Permanent Mission of Turkey to the United Nations, UNICEF, UNFPA, and UN Women. Thank you for joining us today and wish you all a very happy International Day of the Girl Child.